There you go.
All right, you want to talk Nakato at 62 points or Dan Hounds at 87 points?
Welcome to the Rugby Rant podcast show, your premier North American rugby podcast. Growing rugby, one fan at a time.
Welcome, rugby fans. It's episode 119 of the Rugby Rant podcast show. My name is Ty, the Safa Braga. Joining me here, of course, is Rob, the Hammer Hammerschmidt. In absence of Scott, the big guy Ferrara, it'll be us two doing Around the Pitch in just a moment.
This ball represents the game we love. A game fueled by passion. But there are those who wear no number, nor are they in the locker room or the field of play. But they are there for every high and every low. Yes, they are watching every kick, tackle, and try scored. Yes, they are there for when you need them most, because they are the Major League Rugby fans. And the time has come for you to stand with your team. Join us at shopmlr.com today.
So, Rob, as you know, every week we try to be able to highlight what rugby fans should have noticed or maybe went under the radar, something we wanted to push to the forefront. So what would it be this week? I'm just going to throw it straight to you, my friend.
Thanks. I just want to announce, and I don't know about under the radar, but I think it's worth noting that the Chicago Hounds are going to have an open combine on Sunday, January 29th. I'm going to try to be there and cover it. I think my son...
I'm going to try to be there and watch it, not do it.
Right. No, my son, I think he put me on the list because he thought it would be funny to do like some 52-year-old fat guy is going to
be running some Broncos. That's going to be next week's Around the Pitch, by the way.
Yeah, the Bronco will not be happening. But you'll see me. It'll be pulling a hammy with the hammer. That's going to be the segment.
All right. I like that. That's a new show, pulling a hammy with a hammer.
Yeah. So, and it runs from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock at SeatGeek Stadium. I think it's worth noting. I think the value in this is that that it opens up the Hounds to the greater Midwest rugby community, inviting players to have their shot. They can't say that an avenue has been closed to anybody who thinks that they can bring value to an MLR team.
Yeah, and have a shot at actually making a professional career of rugby. There's a lot of great talent here in the Midwest that has been underserved for quite a while when it comes to professional rugby. So I'm fairly certain. I mean, I'm one state over in Iowa, as you know, and it's with all the local rugby are posting it. They've got boys coming in from all different corners of the Midwest to be able to try that out. And I also love on top of that you said it's being held at SeatGeek Stadium, which it gives you the right environment, the right atmosphere, really makes you feel like you're actually having a shot at the professional side, which is nice to be able to see. So good on them. And hopefully they do find some great talent. And talking about finding great talent, I want to send a shout out to the organization at NOLA Gold. They've always been one of those sides, as you know, Rob. I don't have to preach to the choir on this one. You know how many names you've seen that they brought in through from, Lindenwood and all the other great universities. And I mentioned that because, of course, your son does go there. But they do focus on nurturing that talent and helping it reach the next level. And they've done that with 3 young guys right now. And this is good to be able to highlight because they're all the next generation of great American rugby players. First name I wanted to be able to bring up, Sam Klimkowski, formerly the Giltini's first round pick in 2021. Obviously didn't get a lot of game time. He was playing among really, really great talent in a really, really great season that led them to be able to be the victors of the entire thing. So you're looking at a guy here who now has an opportunity to be signed to a senior side, looking for more game time, but it's an American talent and discovered through the pathways of MLR draft, which is great to be able to see. The next one, Gerald McDowell, came through actually the American Raptors, which of course is the hot topic for today, and then moved on to the gold. So there's another pathway that's for a player that might not have existed without that. And then Annalisa Matetu from South Africa originally, from Iowa Central as well, then moved on to Lindenwood. And then now on to Nolo Gold. So it's great to be able to see that. Now, there's an interesting pathway. You got a community college program, Iowa Central, onto a further honors with Lindenwood, elevated himself, spotted as a talent, going to the academy, played the America's Rugby Premiership. So really, it's good to be able to see 3 young guys. And by the way, he also, Matetu, is, I believe, this year, in his 5th consecutive year in the US, which means that he's going to be eligible at the end of the season to play for the USA. So another great one there. Let's hand it over to you, Rob. What else you got?
Yeah. So first of all, Ani is a friend of Preston, so we're very familiar with him, and we wish him all the best as he continues to the gold. Of course, that's a big heart of mine, I guess you'd say, but I want to talk about another area for rugby development. Rugby Illinois has a raffle going on. You can purchase raffle tickets at rugbyillinois.org, and there's kind of the development fundraiser. It's $100 per ticket, kind of steep, but the first prize is a package for 4 to watch England versus Ireland at Aviva in Dublin. So pretty fabulous stuff. Second prize is a package for 2 to watch France versus Ireland at Aviva in Dublin. And then the third prize is a 72-inch TV and a 1-year subscription to watch rugby. This is all thanks to the Irish Rugby Tours and the Chicago Hounds. So, anybody can enter, anybody can win those fabulous prizes. And you're essentially helping to raise money for Rugby Illinois. And again, close to my heart because I've coached with this program, and Preston is going to be helping out with their high school development sides as well. So
where do they go to be able to participate, Rob?
Yeah, there's we can post it on the Fan Zone, and we'll post it. We'll post a link, but there's a QR code to purchase tickets, and again, it's at rugbyillinois.org.
All right.
/ I think it's P /
Yeah, we'll post it.
RIL development fundraiser. So yeah, exactly.
Make it really easy to find it. I'm definitely going to go for the first prize on that one, right, with South Africa. I love how it's like those first 2 prizes are absolutely amazing. And then the drop-off is really fast. They're like, and you can go here and watch it, or you can just watch it at home on TV.
Yeah, you get a 72-inch TV, and unfortunately, it'll be almost life-size as you watch the players.
Right. I do like it. That's any one of those would be a great prize. I'm going to dive into the last piece of the year, and this is really tying into our conversation a little bit later for those of you that are paying attention. The American Raptors have now been announced to officially be joining the Super Rugby Americas. It's the refreshed competition. Ooh, words. Of the SLA, formerly known as. It'll be 7 teams, 7 venues, American Raptors, of course, being the American counterpart, now participating in lieu of Columbia stepping out. And they've gone to be able to find more rich rugby talent. And they found that in the former Austin Gilgroni with Christian Osberg. He's one of the more recent signings. I would not be surprised that this might be one of many coming over from the MLR, looking for serious game time and an opportunity to be able to grow themselves as a professional rugby player in front of USA Rugby eyes. Of course, Glendale is the home of our USA Rugby 15s program, so it could be a smart move for some great talent. So stay on the lookout, and you might see some interesting things coming out of Glendale in regards to the American Raptors. And on that note, we're going to dive into that in just a few moments as we bring on 2 great rugby elites of the past, one with the Utah Warriors and the former USA Eagle, John Cullen, and then secondly, Dave Fee, also a former USA Eagle player and also now a rugby coach with the U18s. They'll be back with us in a moment as we talk about more of this American Raptors thing going on with the Super Rugby Americas, just after we hear more from one of our sponsors.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, I got to run.
Yep.
I'm out.
All right.
Perfect,
Appreciate it, man. Take care.
We'll see you. Tighthead Brewing Company is not just Chicago's premier location to watch rugby and enjoy quality ales and lagers. It is also a great place to enjoy local acts performing live music every Thursday and Saturday nights. Additionally, their Wednesday night trivia nights are something not to be missed. Tighthead is located in Mundelein, Illinois, and easily accessible for many Chicagoans, as it is just steps away from the metro. Owner Bruce Durr and the Tighthead staff are dedicated to ensure your microbrew experience is as tight as their beers. Bruce's love for rugby extends beyond the origin of his brewery's name. Tighthead is committed to supporting the rugby community. This includes his support for Lake County RFC and our own Rugby Rant podcast show. Tighthead's tap room is like the familiar rugby clubhouse in which friends and teammates can meet, socialize, and enjoy the wide variety of brews on tap. Regardless of whether your palate enjoys a good IPA or dark barrel-aged brew, Tighthead can deliver. Hey, Chicago, when you want rugby, Tighthead Brewing Company will satisfy your thirst. Tighthead, it's worth more than a try.
Welcome, rugby fans. It's that time again to join us here on the Rugby Rant podcast show. Again, a quick reminder, my name is Ty, the Safa Braga. Joining me alongside, of course, is my compatriot, Rob, the Hammerschmidt. But to be able to tackle this debate, which, as you know, is an important one in the rugby landscape, we'll talk about it why, but we're brought in two of the big guns of our previous seasons. That is John Cullen, former Utah Warrior and former USA Eagle, in addition to another Eagle on screen as well, with Dave Fee, also now in a firm and a position in coaching. U18s, U20s, the development in USA Rugby is in his hands and with the next generation in mind. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Anyone can talk.
Open forum. I'll just say that the fine hat that Dave Fee is wearing, pick that up at American Rugby Outfitters.
Yeah, I've been around long enough to know you'll always let the big guy, the forwards, go first. So I was gonna let
I like it. Well played, sir. Well played. Well, gentlemen, let's talk about how this is going to happen today. It's been a hot topic among the rugby fan circles online and everywhere else is the new emerging professional rugby contest, the refreshed Super Rugby Americas from its former position known as the SLA. Now it has the inclusion of the American Raptors, who of course have their home in Glendale, Colorado, the former Glendale Raptors, Colorado Raptors. We've seen different iterations of them, but this most recent one will now finally see this next evolution in their crossover athlete program, kind of graduating to higher honors and being a part of this professional outfit, which will include 7 sides, 7 venues from North America and down all the way to South America. In fact, it has 7 sides, 1 from Chile, 2 from Argentina, 1 from Uruguay, Brazil, Paraguay, and of course the USA making up the final part of the 7. They are actually replacing Colombia, who unfortunately had some financial restraints that prevented them from entering this competition this time around. Opens up a door for the USA to be able to continue their mission to be able to create professional athletes to be able to cultivate the next generation of rugby superstars to take on the world. So with all that being said, we're here to be able to debate whether we believe that this competition can add value to the American rugby landscape with this competition in mind. So, gentlemen, I'm just going to hand it over first to be able to let you guys discuss this point. That's the overarching question that fans have been asking. Will it add value to the American landscape? And we're going to hand over to John Cullen first to be our speaker.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start my point off like every great debate is stealing something from someone smarter than me. And right before we jumped on, I think just the comment that Dave made alone that, hey, those first 5 games, man, they're really up against it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, Well, just that comment alone tells me that this competition is going to be good for their development and development of rugby. Because if Glendale joined the MLR and they played their first 5 games against any MLR team, would everyone be like, oh man, they're really up against it? Or would it be like, oh yeah, they'll have some tough games. Maybe it's snowing and San Diego got a warm day. But they're like, man, they have to go play against the Chileans and the Argentinian team and this team and that team. So, I mean, just that comment alone tells me it's going to be good for development. And along the lines of, I think a lot of people have said, whether it's going to help, and I know, and we got to be kind of specific, right? North American rugby, or is it going to help South American rugby? Is it going to help American rugby? I mean, I want to say yes, but also, if we look at recent results, why in any way, shape, or form would the South Americans have any care about the development of our rugby? They seem to be doing just fine with whatever they have going on down there amongst themselves. I think Glendale specifically is going to reap the benefits of that competition. I don't know if it's going to disperse into everyone else, but I could never say that Glendale is not going to get better. And for North American rugby fans to be mad about it, I mean, the MLR and North American players and players in the States or Canadians are not entitled to anyone else's rugby development. Like, you should just appreciate the opportunities you get.
So more rugby is better, right?
Yeah, of course. And whether we are involved more, and yeah, I would love to see a perfect joining together that actually becomes like a Super Rugby America or some any way, shape, or form crossover games, things like that when the money makes sense, for sure. But people being mad that Glendale made a decision to go join what is probably a higher level of play right now, if we're talking about this weird national team result correlation, you have to say they're better. Yeah, I think it's only better. I'd love to see more crossover teams playing. I'm sure the players and everyone involved would enjoy those type of games.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point there. As you said, probably a higher level of rugby. So what would suggest that? Well, the recent disappointment of the World Cup rugby campaign, where we competed against South American sides, we saw how much they've grown in the last 4-year cycle. And obviously we know where the US ended up. So really we have to, just on that basis alone, assume that this competition is going to help raise the level, or at least help us participate at a higher level. And that's one of the key takeaways that I enjoy there from you, John. And more rugby is great. Do we have to debate whether it's good for the general landscape right now? Maybe not, but except to be able to look at the fact that will it help this organization and rugby players play at a higher level? I like how you were thinking a little bit smaller. Yes, it will help Glendale. Yes, it will put them in a professional league. Yes, it will allow those players to play at a higher level of rugby, which ultimately is going to help rugby take a step forward. How great a step forward is debatable. And that's what we leave to the next person here. Dave Fee, take the floor.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. And, I'll pick up a little bit on what John said. I think more rugby is good rugby. And Ty, you nailed it. Why are we here? Well, the Chileans are in the World Cup next year. The Argentinians are in the World Cup next year. The Uruguayans are in the World Cup next year. And the United States and Canada are left at home. And as a coach, you want what's best for your players. And I think this competition is going to provide some outstanding competition to be challenged. You look at the young 10, Lini Latu, who went on that Falcons tour down to South America.
Right.
I think it was announced today that the Raptors are bringing in an Argentinian 9 who has about 100 appearances for Argentina. Yeah. So when you think about it, is that going to help Latu's development as an American 10 being paired with an Argentinian 9 with 100 caps? I think so. You look at the schedule, they're going to play the Selknam team, which won that championship a year ago up front. Then Penarol, which also has won a championship down there, a new Argentinian team. So the competition is going to provide a lot of challenges. I was in Glendale last summer when I saw them do the America's Challenge Cup, and I think they lost 69-0 to that Jaguares team, which is,
yeah, that was a solid team.
yeah, and that was a young team, right? That wasn't even the full Jaguares team.
Yeah.
And then I think they played that Penarol side and again lost to a young Penarol side because they were getting ready for the World Cup. And I think it was a 26-10 game. So again, my comment that they're going to be up against it is true. But I think it's going to provide some awesome challenges. And, I think it's going to provide a lot of, we haven't hit on the American aspect, right? You've got guys like Ronan Murphy out of St. Mary's. I think he's captaining the team this year. Ethan McVeigh, Aki Pulu is another young 10 that a lot of people are talking about. So it's providing these American kids a great opportunity to go play in some quality competition. I don't know, maybe John would agree going to Buenos Aires and Santiago, Chile might be better than going to Atlanta and New Orleans. So it's a good travel schedule as well, too. And I think it's going to be exciting. It's going to be some great rugby. And for these American kids that may be holding tackle shields, on the practice fields of the MLR teams, this is going to give them an opportunity to not only, be exposed to high-level daily training environments, but give them an opportunity to play as well.
Yeah. And, on that note, giving them an opportunity to play, I wanted to kind of use that as a springboard into one of the other things. I recently had the opportunity to be able to listen to a DNVR podcast, Colton Strickler, shout out to him, does a great job of being able to be able to cover all the ongoings there in Glendale, in particular, with the Raptors. Mark Bullock, the director of rugby there, identified one of the great, things that will be secondary benefit to being able to have this program be elevated to compete at this level is that you'll have a lot of great talent that in the MLR landscape didn't necessarily get as much game time as they could have or should have because the competition's high at that level. It's the highest that we can offer. So you got guys who might have an opportunity to be able to play professional rugby there. Would it be easy to be able to make the transition? I think so. Will they be knocking on those doors if they're not getting in the doors that they want to get in? For sure. So we don't know what that would look like right now. But we are seeing players from Argentina. We are seeing players from Colombia coming to play there. Colombia, of course, lost their professional franchise, who hasn't lost it, but is not participating this year. So you will see a lot of this relationship blossom over the season and the next season to come. And giving players an opportunity to play professional rugby, whereas they might not necessarily have that otherwise. Even if they're signed to an MLR side, they might not be getting the game time. And that's important that everybody gets more game time to become better. And I like that you brought that point up there, Dave. Thank you very much. Let's hand it over to the hammer.
So I'm going to take this point a little off of what John said, and that is if indeed we're talking about another competition, there's this other competition in a sense for the hearts and minds of the American rugby public. So, with the MLR. So you're going to have these two organizations kind of almost pitted against one another. Now, on this face of at least in 2023, are we going to see that competition, them butt heads initially? No, I don't think so. They can be independent. As we've talked about, as Dave mentioned, there's a lot of young guys going to that Raptor side. But if we see this Super Rugby America's competition progress in the way that the vision has been laid out, with the likes of Canada coming in, with the potential, the rumors are swirling about another American side coming in. Do we see a competition for players, right? To raise the level of the Super Rugby America's competition? Do they really seek out other American players to come in those sides to bolster their rosters, 2 or 3 or 4 seasons down the road? And so, yeah, I think there's going to be a competition there. But at the end of the day, if there is, that'll make the organization stronger because they'll have to do things cleaner. They'll have to do things better when there's a competition, right? You have to perfect your craft if you want to set yourself ahead. So we may see that residual effect. Note, and I think this is important for people who are listening, because there's always this talk about, the MLR should develop players and this, that, and the other. You got to remember that these two competitions are different in their approach. The MLR is your typical, sports model where it's a business first, right? They're trying to put butts in seats and they're trying to make money just like every other major sport in the United States. And so whether that's bringing back Ma'anonu to put more butts in San Diego, or whatever, that's what they're going to do, as opposed to what Glendale's trying to do, which is develop, as Dave talked about, American talent. And that's their objective, is to try to help Americans develop to play, at a higher level here in the United States. So, it'll be interesting to see if both competitions progress, where this goes 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. And let's also think about this. We've talked to some people, names will not be mentioned, but rumors are swirling about, World Rugby supports this endeavor, right?
Yeah.
World Rugby has a lot of purse strings. So we can only suggest that World Rugby will probably be throwing some money at this competition. We know that they've already done it in South America. We'd venture to guess that some of that money will be heading towards the competition in North America.
Right. I want to be able to just hone in on that point just for a moment. The benefits obvious, right, is when you get more of a powerful purse, you can do a lot more. Everybody knows that rugby development comes down to money. Where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? We just know that's where all roads lead. So it's not entirely, but there's a huge chunk of money that's being supported by World Rugby. And why? Well, they've seen the proof in the pudding for, as we pointed out, Chile, Uruguay, Argentina. Now let's dive one layer deeper. Why? Because they have all roads lead to one professional franchise. All their talents, all of their skill, all of their resources is provided in one direction, and that direction has a vision that is unified. And this is what really Glendale has tried to be able to do. As you said, when this evolves 2 or 3 or however many years down the road, we're actually into that next step in the evolution. The Glendale Raptors exiting the MLR, then was called the Colorado Raptors, kind of started there, the Colorado XO, then the crossover athlete program, then the Raptors, and now we're onto this. Everybody knew they had to be able to get into a professional league to be able to make that next step forward. Yeah. They're doing that, but in doing so, they are moving a little bit farther away from their crossover athlete core philosophy. In fact, they refer to them now as the crossover athletes, right? Because they're either, whichever way you want to describe it, rugby players with limited experience, whatever it is. I've heard several different definitions, but they're bringing in talent from other areas. So and why I bring this up is we might be seeing a little bit of a step away from the roster traditionally seen from them, where it's all USA-based players. We know that with Argentina. We know there's going to be a Colombian influence. Now, what if that team ends up being more than 50% not American because it's in an international contest? Does it still add value? That's an interesting question, right, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to call a spade, right? It's only inevitable. They did the crossover thing. We all scoffed and chuckled and laughed. And as, the definition of a crossover athlete into rugby, probably one of the few that can speak very candidly, it only goes so far. You can only do so much. I walked into my first Eagles camp as, probably one of the better at the time, if it wasn't for Samu or someone like that, the better, if not best athlete at my position. And I remember I talk to people now, looking back, I thought I should be playing. I thought I should be starting. I'm bigger, faster, stronger, And I was like, I didn't know shit about how to play.
Benefit of hindsight, right?
Now, just the fact, and I can joke about it now, obviously, but being competitive in the time, I had no idea. I didn't know what I didn't know. But looking back now of how I thought I should play the game to how the game should be played, I had no business being on a test.
The benefit of experience, right, tells you that now.
It's not even close. And I know they played a couple of those games, and they played some U.S. club rugby sides that, of course, you can run around them for 60 minutes with athletes.
Right. I mean, it's amateurs versus professionals. So.
And try to prove a point, but then you're going to see, you go down south, you go down to these South American teams with guys that have played for a very long time. They don't care. I promise you, I played against the Uruguayans and the Chileans. They do not care how big you are, how fast you are. They do not care. You're going to get cut right mid-shin every time you carry the ball, and it does not matter if you can't out-rugby play these guys. You're not going to out-athlete them. Right. So they probably learned that a little bit. They're going to learn it even more. And yeah, the mission statements are there's going to be some fat trimmed off the mission statements of this crossover American only principles.
Right.
And I think that's okay because, they're adding, more rugby experience. I think one of the challenges, as John would attest to, is age. So they're bringing some of the, what was crossover athletes and, they're 24, 25, 26 years old. And unfortunately, by the time they get the time on the job needed, they're probably aged out. And, is it worth the total investment? But I think we would also say athletes like David Still and John Cullen are the guys that we do want playing our game. And that is the level of athlete that will, propel us to that next level. I mean, you see what David Still's doing on the sevens team. And again, I know he's a diamond in the rough, but if they could supplement some of those fantastic athletes.
Well, yeah, I mean, diamond in the rough
with an Argentinian 9, and things like that. I think that's where the trajectory is. And, every American rugby player would probably say that the best thing for our country was the ITTs. And if this does, our country is different in that we're not the size of, Ireland and England and, where everyone can get in their car and drive to London in 2 hours. I mean, we've got a big financial deficit because of the size of our country. And if this becomes regional, I think, that's what this, what I hear as Rob talks about expansion. So there's a team in Canada coming. There's a team in Mexico coming.
Well, the team in Canada, was going to be the BC. It was going to be out of Vancouver. I can't remember the name. They participated in the America's Challenge Cup as the Ravens, but they would have gone by some other name. They obviously pulled out because of money. Colombia pulled out because of money. We hope to be able to see another American side or another Canadian side, but the expectation is that this will grow to 10 sides within the next 3 seasons. Do you think that that's a reasonable target, Dave, from 7 to 10?
I think 10 sounds like a lot. I think they have 6 or 7, which was working down in South America. Could I see 4 in the U.S., a Canadian team and a Mexican team, and, see 6 North American, 6 South American? That seems a little bit more realistic. And where this thing goes, nobody has a crystal ball, but I think in the short term, that sounds a little bit more realistic.
Yeah.
When you talk about the amount of players we need, Americans competing in a quality competition, I think you hear World Rugby talk about the number of, 120, or so. So if that's 30 guys on a roster, that's 4 teams, right? So that's 120 American players competing, together, very similar to the Cheltenham teams, to the Penarol teams, playing together, training together. And if we can do that, I mean, that's the optimism I think we all have, for 27-31, right? And
absolutely,
which is positivity we need coming out of, a dismal 22.
Rob, I want to propose the next question to you that many fans have proposed online. Is this really just competition to Major League Rugby, and does it diminish the player pool?
Well, I think it is competition. Maybe not this season necessarily, because you only have one team in Glendale, and it looks like they're attracting a lot of real young players for development. But, again, if the vision is to expand to 2 or 3 or 4 sides in the U.S., 1 side in BC, let's face it. Did the MLR have a player welfare issue in the offseason? Yes. If teams step forward in this competition and they can create a positive player welfare situation where the housing's good, the healthcare is good, the S&C is good, just the general healthcare, like Glendale, I don't know whether people know this, but Glendale, is subsidized by the city. So, if I'm not mistaken,
all those things are taken care of.
Don't those players get that, get essentially the same, workman's comp, everything else that city employees get? Yes. Now that's an advantage they have. But if you're a player and you're looking at what happened in the MLR and you're looking at that and you're thinking, do I get paid the same? Yeah, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but I get the healthcare, I get some of these other things, I get, pretty good facilities. That's not bad. Right?
Yeah, so it can be a pretty good life.
When you look at it that way through that lens, you really begin to understand that at some point this may be a competitive atmosphere between these two, competitions, and players may be making a seriously maybe not a difficult choice for them, but it may be a difficult choice for the fans of MLR teams or fans of, whatever teams develop out of this competition.
Well, I think, you gotta clarify when you say players. For American players, again, the MLR has come out and said it several times. I mean, their goal is to create a business, and we now have a team here in Chicago, and they're expanding. And I think Luke White, may have signed, who came from that original Glendale program, and so there's a lot of things happening there. And I think it's just a different player, that they want to do things a different way. And so I think Glendale is trying to focus on a different player. And so for an American kid who can get paid, get the benefits, and then you add in get playing time and a chance to, showcase to the Eagles, the Falcons, those types of things. I think that's where, you may have, guys having to make some tough decisions. But, for guys on the twilights of their careers, from South Africa, New Zealand, or England, I think, the option's still there to come and create, an exciting product for those who want to see, competitive rugby.
But that being said, I mean, isn't the thought by the American rugby fan is that at some point down the road, the hope is that rugby grows to the point where those rugby rosters are dominated by American players, right? And that the American standard is raised. But again, if some of those players are being attracted to another competition, does it make that developmental process more difficult?
Yeah, and I know there's a local Kruger. He was playing Ohio State. High projections. I think he's been with the Free Jacks. Probably isn't getting the time he needs, and I think maybe making another choice into his career, rather than coming back to rugby.
I was gonna say, I think it depends on each MLR team's path, view, and finances on development. How much time do they have for a guy to actually develop? How long can they keep him in an academy? Do they even have an academy? Like, this is a whole different discussion, I know, but it would all depend on how much they value development over next year, next roster, next year, next roster.
One of the interesting
things, it looks like teams have invested in that, in the
some are reaping the rewards already.
The America's Premier Rugby Premiership this fall. I mean, that was one of the things. Knowing NOLA, they didn't have a D1 team there, but with their ability to get into that competition, it allowed some of those fringe roster guys, guys like Moni Tungawi's brother, Junior, guys like Ross Epperschmidt, guys like Aaron Matthews showed out and, could break into that roster. So, I guess my point is it offered them an opportunity to compete at a higher level of competition. Would American players in that position go, which one would I rather, which one is more attractive to me?
The way I see it, though, is MLR sides are actually competing against each other for players, right? They're trying to be able to find the next better talent or develop the next better talent and keep that talent if they've developed it rather than going to another side. But they're spending their money to be able to develop that player. Whereas Glendale is trying to be able to step outside of that, and they're finding fresh talent that might not necessarily have been spotted before. David Still, you mentioned that name before. We've got other players that have transitioned from the Raptors into the MLR that might not necessarily been given that opportunity, but they have, with the platform, they have got that chance. And there might be some people, if that platform becomes big enough, move from the MLR to this new version of the Super Rugby Americas, because it's about the stage that they set. And right now, that stage appears to be on paper possibly more competitive and greater longevity in terms of if your goal is to develop rugby players to exceed expectations and reach higher levels of success, which is national service for America. So there certainly is a lot to be able to be gained. Sorry, Rob, you wanted to be able to jump in there?
How Red asked would a team be if they put time and money into the development of a young player from let's take Young Glory. We know Tim Brown doing a great job. If they develop a player from the time they're 12, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, they do go through Young Glory, they go through the developmental team, and all of a sudden that player sees a more attractive opportunity with the growth of Super Rugby Americas and says, you know what, I like the deal they're offering better than the one.
I'm going to go where I can play the best rugby. Yeah.
Tough.
That's America.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, it's like, and to be fair though, like, how many kids are developed in Leicester's academy, but they play for Saracens or that, so-and-so. The Irish are probably the only ones
doing business in the professional sport.
I would say the Irish are the only ones who have it solely locked in, but again, they're the freaking they're the size of Maine. Like, of course it's easy to do. Like, it doesn't count.
Yeah. No,
if
absolutely.
New York had to be good at New York rugby, they probably do pretty well.
Yeah, that's a fair point, right? But, geographically so large, different unions certainly makes it tough. I think with Glendale, they have far less challenges because they're only focused on their one effort. All roads kind of lead, if you want to be playing at this level of competition, to them for the moment. Could it become more difficult as you add other teams in North America, whether it be Canada or the US? Yes, absolutely. But I still think that the level of competition would be the most deciding factor. If you are a player who wants to pursue a professional career for the USA Eagles, you want to play in a platform that gives you the best opportunity. And right now, this could be another great option for them. We don't know for sure yet, but it certainly might be a higher level of competition. And we'll only get to be able to tell as the season starts, February 18th, as a reminder for everybody. That will be the start. Obviously, it coincides with the opening of the MLR in the same month. It'll be interesting to be able to judge the opening exchanges. We do have a new side joining the MLR with the Chicago Hounds. We have the Glendale side joining there. So perhaps we'll find comparables between those two sides. In case you couldn't notice, there was some great animations from John Cullen, old school.
John Cullen is available to teach all Hounds fans the proper handshake at Hounds games.
You're reminding me of like if somebody had to like sign a rugby match, like.
To be fair, great logo, great colors. I can't be too mad about it.
Oh, I thought there was a butt coming.
Nope. I wanted to. New York makes it too easy to hate on everything they do, so Chicago came in. Good name, good logo, good colors, and then
they've got a heck of a team. If you look at it on paper, I mean, some of the signings from the Gilgronis and Giltinis filling in, and their coaching staff looks.
I was on Twitter. The other day. I think it was the Rugby Network or Rugby Pass or something. They're like, "Hey, what's your hot take?" I was like, "Chicago makes the playoffs."
With the amount of continuity they have, just carrying over those players and the coaching style, we were talking about this a moment before, Rob, myself, and somebody else. I believe that if they can get the organization and the structure in place, it could be a competitive side because they're carrying over a lot of momentum that was left behind from LA and Gilgronis.
What question I do have, Rob? Do we know how many MLR guys have signed with the Raptors? Is it 7? Guys that have been.
So most recent. So let me qualify that. How many guys that played in the MLR last season?
Correct. Or within the last 2 seasons, I guess, that are now potentially choosing this as an option.
It's a good question.
Like the Christian Osbergs of the
most
world,
recent one,
guys that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to be able to say I don't know either, but that's a good question. But I know that there's been talent going the other way. Will it come back to them? I don't know. Right now,
I wonder what that team would look like had they had this competition to play in and didn't lose some of those guys. Obviously this is great for Glendale the American Raptors. Because they have this competition to play in, right? I mean, and I think it's some kudos need to be given to those guys for getting this done. And it's been a long time coming, and to have that opportunity to play in this competition will be great for them.
Yeah, January 2nd they have their team assembled. So, but they haven't officially released the roster. So,
before we get too far away from the Hounds, let me just say their efforts will be an abject failure unless they have bring your dog to the park day, so that everybody brings their dogs to a game. I mean, it's only natural.
All right, you heard it there. The marketing department for them. It's a good idea. I mean, if you want fan engagement, think of anything you can to be able to get people involved.
And let's be fair, there will be a lot of barking going on if that happens.
I think, Dave, that's an interesting point. I'd be really interested to see if anyone trickles back to Glendale.
Yeah. I mean, dependent on how the season goes, of course. But, look, worst case scenario, and we're not going to go too far into this, but worst case scenario, they have already set a precedent in the MLR that if you're not ready, okay, you can wait another season with the Jackals. Which, by the way, when the Jackals play the Hounds, is that the dogfight? There's got to be something there, right, down the road. So they've already set
the Michael Vick Bowl.
Right.
Sorry, that was
So-
low-hanging fruit, boys.
Yeah. So if they don't, let's just say, I mean, obviously this is all just speculation. Nobody knows anything again, but let's imagine they don't for a moment. It would look like a dispersal draft again, as they did with the Jackals. That means that they could go anywhere because the contract they've signed is null and void. And I don't think that they would, unless there's something different in it, but they don't retain the rights. But it'll be interesting to be able to see that if that didn't happen, Glendale would be poised to be able to reap the rewards and from those losses there. But as it stands, gentlemen, let's go once around the table to be able to finish this piece and ask your final thought on the value of this competition, the Super Rugby Americas, being played in the US with one side as the American Raptors participating, at least for now. And we started where we started it all before with you, John Cullen. Your final thought.
Yeah, overall, I think it's positive. I think it's good. More exposure to high-level rugby, high-level competition. Gosh, who knows? Let's use them as a sleeper agent or something down there. Bring some information back of what they're doing. Bring back some passion. Bring back what it means to play for your country and for your club, and how it feels to play against those guys for 80 minutes who really care. Like, if we just got to use them as a double agent, just bring back. Get me my Looney Tunes, Michael's Secret Stuff sauce in a cup, and let's get it back up here. But no, I think it's gonna be a good thing. More good rugby is good rugby.
Well, that might very well happen if you fast forward a couple of seasons and you have American players picked up by sides in South America and under their coaching, sides there. Bring back that influence, right? That's one of the great merits of having players go overseas and coming back, is they bring that experience and knowledge with them. So who knows? Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think plagiarism in rugby's fine. Let's take it. Let's take it and bring it here. And I'd ask, did it work for the Uruguayans? Did it work for the Chileans? And has it worked out for the Argentinians? And I think the answer is yes to all of those. So yes, it's exciting. Yes, I think it's a good thing. Yes, I think it's exciting for a young Line Latu to be paired with an Argentinian 9 who's got 100 caps. I think it's all good. It's all exciting. And again, we want to look to the future, and we'll see where this thing ends up 2 or 3 years down the road.
I like it. Rob, what do you think?
Well, what I think is Scott could not be with us, so I'm going to try to get him to represent somehow. And you know what he's a fan of saying? Iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. And I think having these two competition is going to cause each of them to look a little bit inward and say, how can we do things better, knowing that there's another competition out there, not only on the pitch, but also on the business end of things. And when you think about that opportunity, in good old America, any competition and capitalism creates a better product. And so, right. How can we say it's not a good thing?
Yeah, and eventually, if it becomes big enough and it becomes consistent and it becomes viable, the MLR itself would be able to have to raise their level of player welfare, all the things, the competition, all of that stuff. And that's only a good thing, right? Because if USA Rugby is being pushed forward in any way possible, doesn't matter by what means or what may support it, as long as the end result is that it is getting better and collectively everybody will reap the rewards. So it sounds like everybody is in favor of the new Super Rugby Americas Championship finding its way with the inclusion of an American side. You as a fan can continue to be able to watch it and catch it from February 18th will be the opening exchanges. There will be 45 matches in total, 7 teams, 7 venues, culminating in a final in June. So it's going to be interesting to be able to follow this alongside the action that we traditionally have seen here in the US with Major League Rugby. I, for one, will stay very, very close to it, as I hope to be in Glendale for many of those matches as the announcer in stadium. And I will, of course, continue to be able to talk about it here on the show, as we hope you as fans will continue to be able to enjoy that content here with us week after week. As you know, we hope to be able to grow rugby one fan at a time. We do that with your help and the help of our partners all the way through, and also with the help of great guests like John and Dave. John, Dave, thank you for joining us here today. I like it. I like it. All right. So, gentlemen, again, it's been a blast. Let us know what you think as a fan by dropping a comment. You can follow us under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. Let myself and the team know what you think. Do you believe that it is good for rugby overall? Do you believe that there are criticisms we did not cover? Let us know. The debate continues online under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod, and we will continue. Oh, I also forgot to be able to tell everybody that tuning in to watching this, it's an important note to be able to make. I don't want anybody leaving without this information. You can continue to be able to watch it free of charge on AmericanRaptors.com, all of the matches that the American Raptors are participating in. However, if you are looking to be able to catch the matches from the other sides participating in as South American counterparts, you'll have to be able to do so on the local South American ESPN Plus feed. But for all the American Raptor games, it'll be aired live and in real time through the AmericanRaptors.com website. So there you have it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been another great, exciting episode here, and we will bid these guys farewell, but not before one more time thanking them for joining us here. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dave. And we'll catch you at the next one. We'll be back in just a few moments with one of our sponsors sharing a little bit more.